Identity access management automation, nothing new. What we're trying to discuss here too is that it's becoming more popular and more cool, more mainstream because of the cybersecurity threats. And so, James, cybersecurity, what do you think about cybersecurity?
Well, I mean, I have, because I'm an actor and I want people to be able to find me, I also have myself on as many platforms as possible. So I imagine that also makes me much more vulnerable. I try to use as much protection as possible. So I use things like, and this, for the record, I'm not an expert, so I might be doing dumb things. This is what I do. I have Bitwarden, which makes me different passwords and it saves them all. And then I make sure that I use two-factor authentications. But at the same time, what I'm always on the lookout for is somebody that is trying to, it's really easy to impersonate me, especially now that you can verify yourself with money. So I don't really know the best way to protect myself, but I know that if I don't take every precaution that I can, somebody can hijack my voice and say whatever they want. And it's pretty easy to get canceled and really tough to explain, oh, that wasn't me later. So far I've been lucky and nothing's got me. But the more platforms that I'm trying to have myself on, and like, I don't mean to hijack the conversation, but like if I want to use a program that makes it so I make one message that goes out to multiple platforms, that seems to put me at more risk.
Yeah. I dream of a life of users can do their own self-application. Like they can say, like, I want a self-service. Like they can say, I want this application. Instead of having help desk tickets, there's just such a different world with identity access management that it was years ago. And not machine intelligence, but machine like usefulness, like using worker capability that's just tuning and process optimization and collaborative development. I just think there's something that we need to talk about there. That's a thing with identity access management. So question is the people, like how do we talk technology to our end users? How do we make this part of the business? How is this not just a power, profit, and persuasion, and all the end users' voices are heard? I don't want to be like political, like we need to have everyone heard in the whole world, but a little bit, because this isn't just the IT director, the security officer, that kind of thing. So the question to Andrew here is how can organizations build consensus when implementing IAM, AI, and automation technologies?
Yeah, and Laura, and one of the big issues is the three-letter acronyms we throw around in IT, and having people understand those, and how do we then make it a business thing, right?
Yeah.
So usually I see a lot of kind of two sides to it. One is using governance, right? If you're in a governance field, a field has some governance around it, whether that's medical or financial, basically using that governance and saying, hey, we have to do it, right? That's one side of it. The other side is using it as an optimization platform and saying like, hey, we're going to use it, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to save money, right? We're going to make your life easier, right? We're going to give you access quicker. We're going to give you better access instead of talking about, hey, let's give less access, to the users. Don't speak to that side of it, but it's more about how I'm going to help you, right? I'm going to make your job easier. Come along on my journey, right? You know what I mean? And I wouldn't say we're pulling the wool over their eyes, right? And that's not what it is. But not making it as much a security thing, because security is built into everything, right? But making it a user optimization thing, So I kind of see that.
Do you mind if I ask you this? Because
Yeah.
obviously there's going to be some differences in my career than what you're dealing with. But for me, I love something like Bitwarden because it makes my life easier.
Yes.
I can't memorize passwords and I can't make them. So for me, the selling point is I know I have to have security and I'm not good at it. So I use this side program. So is the idea that you're trying to say is make it easier for people instead of telling them how much it's going to help them, show them how much easier it's going to make their life?
Yeah, exactly. Let me give you an example. Right now, we're working on a passwordless. Passwordless is kind of like zero trust. It's more of a model, right? Eventually, right, we want to get to the point where people don't even know your password, right? You don't even know your own password, and maybe that password is 50, 150, whatever characters long, right? But
Yeah.
but then using things that you are or to gain access to a system, and where you can kind of see some optimization there is, think about this, James. If you're in a manufacturing organization, right, and you have to wear big gloves, or maybe you have a big face shield, right, so maybe your retina is not working, maybe you can use biometrics in other ways. So being able to keep that manufacturing operation going without having to take off your gloves, type in a
Yeah.
password, I mean, and
Or even not with the having like big gloves, just being out in the winter yesterday in Chicago, I had to take my gloves off to use my phone.
Yeah. You probably see this when you go to a doctor, right? You see the doctor or the nurse will bring in, the cart, right? And then they'll probably have a cat card or something that they use to log in, right? Because they're not sitting there taking a lot of time, authenticating to the system, right? So using it as more of a optimization, business enablement, right? And then business starts listening.
But with what? So do you, a special tool, like, or how do you envision doing it? It's hard to also do that as well, like just even configuring it. So a new product, or what's your favorite with passwordless?
Ooh, passwordless is a journey. I wouldn't say we haven't got there yet. I don't have a
Yep.
favorite product. Um, I would say that uh, passwordless, is that end goal, but understanding your identities and
Agreed.
getting them all into place first is a real big issue, right? The other problem is, how much technology debt do you have?
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're still using IBMI's, non-Microsoft environments, even some Apple environments, right? Technology that might be 20, 30 years old, your ability to integrate is significantly different, right? So a lot of the newer tools are more SaaS centric, right? Cloud centric, Microsoft centric, really easy to deploy unless you have something outside the box, right? Then that's where it sort of fell down, right? Or some products like, Delinea, which was Psychotic, merged with Centrify. No, I forget, what was the other one. Anyways,
Secret server.
yes, well, Secret Server was the Psychotic.
Psychotic.
Yeah, and then they merged with this other company that had a lot of on-prem ability. So in that technology debt space, right? So you're kind of seeing a little bit of that, depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it and what kind of technology you have. That it's going to be, it's hard to say exactly right. The biggest thing is, understanding what you got and where you can go, right? And that's where a lot of times you need help, right? I mean, just to be honest with you, um,
No.
you can't be I'm not an expert in everything, and I know enough to know I don't know, right? So then I need somebody to help out and really dig into it. But yeah,
And
James. Oh, go ahead, Laura.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the one other thing James was talking about is, we're talking about identity access management, and really James is getting to the brand reputation side of it, right? Which is another thing that you could pivot onto for businesses as well, because businesses also have a brand reputation, right?
Yeah.
There's all different kinds of risk, right?
Yep.
Reputation risk is big for a lot of companies, right? Some companies not as much, right? But I would say, looking back at some of the things like the SolarWind breach, right, probably hit
Yeah.
them in their profit center, right? So
I imagine so.
yeah. So I mean, it depends on what you're doing, right? But that's a big issue, right?
Lewis, you know a lot about this too. I know that you know more on, you're from, you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi guys. I actually meant to join this group a long time ago, and
Oh, good.
Laura and I were planning to, I guess, co-host it at some point years ago, but I had something else that came up. So I am more on the business side of things. I'm, very intrigued by what Andrew is saying here and his depth of knowledge in the space. But I guess I could speak to it from more, selling a solution into the space, but also as a consumer experiencing some of these changes. And the passwordless is a really cool thing. I mean, I use a Mac, and it has that finger print reader. So whenever I go into an app like my banking app, for example, it comes up, and I no longer have to enter the password. I simply just put my finger on it, and I find that to be so cool. And it does have I guess, the dual factor built in, because it's something that I have, obviously, which is the fingerprint, but they're also looking at your IP address, your behavior, in which, am I logging in at 2 a.m. in the morning, which I never do, or am I logging in at the usual whatever after work? And based on those, they can determine, yeah, this is good. We can, grant you access, or challenge me for whatever secret, things that I've shared with them. So I find it very, very useful as a consumer. But I also understand, like if you're working, I think I was listening to the presentation from the lady that is the CISO at Otis Elevator, and they literally have the problems that you just described, Andrew. Somebody in an elevator shaft, needing to access their network, right? And how do you do that with the gloves and the grease on you and all that stuff? And yeah, for that they have to have an alternative way of authentication. But to me, I think this is identity access management, which stretches far beyond just authentication. You have all those other elements that are built in, which is, like the governance piece, making sure that you're managing the life cycle of your users as they traverse to the organization. You may change roles within, and you have to not only just keep adding your privileges, but also making sure that what you no longer need is taken away. So I really love this space. It's pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to learning more from you guys.
Thank you. Roger, you're from Chicago. Do you want to say hi or introduce yourself? Hi.
I'm a new guy, and my background is telecommunication, and focus on wireline wireless for more than 20 years.
Nice.
And in my last 5 years, I work as a sales engineer in a telco operator, and also work a short period of time in a MSSP, focus on providing the solution. I define the solution for small and medium US enterprise to protect their IT environment. And IAM, it's the new parameter for the security. And that's the reason I'm eager to join. I accidentally find this group. I jump on right away. And I'd like to learn more things from those experts like you guys.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Welcome. John, do you want to say hi?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, in the Midwest, my background's started really with physical security type systems. As we transitioned to IP cameras, I started to become very interested in networking and everything related to it.
Mm-hmm.
So last year I got my CISSP, my certified ethical hacker, and security plus.
Nice.
And now I'm just really realizing I like identity and access management. So just here to see what I can learn.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming. So one of the questions too, Andrew, was Entra, and you use a lot of Microsoft in your environment?
Sure do. Yep. And I assume there's a lot of people that are like that, right?
And using Microsoft, and do you use Microsoft for password lists as well, like Windows Hello?
Yes, that's what we're trying. We actually
Okay.
have Okta, right?
Okay.
For SSO, SAML, MFA. But of course, Microsoft is still the identity provider for us, right? So, yep, that's exactly right. Yep, Windows Hello, and go ahead.
So ACTA, so how do you get buy-in? So on the beginning of the conversation too is ACTA, how you, and also identity in general, how do you get buy-in from the application owners, and integrating a technology like ACTA, how do you do that? Like, how is it like, okay, we're going to do ACTA now, application owner, we're going to do it now. And this is because it's not just the IT deciding it, it's also other people. Like, you have to get buy-in. Do you get buy-in from the C-level? Do you get buy-in from, or do you just, you are the boss of the app? How do you handle that?
Yeah, and one thing is we're a Japanese company, so we're headquartered in Tokyo. So and I'm part of the regional team, and we're headquartered in New York. So some of the things actually come down from Tokyo as a priority, as a project, and it's pretty easy because that's been already bought in at the top, right, and comes down. So in that case, Okta is the preferred provider. So that's a slam dunk. Now, if it's some, then you get to the point like you're mentioning the application owners, right? First of all, do you know all the applications? Do you know all your SaaS apps, right?
Right,
Then
inventory.
then how do you prioritize which ones? What are they used for? Where are the owners at? Is the finance the admin of a banking app? Do you have some kind of insurance apps that are in, your risk department? Finding those out. And of course, if you're running any type of like Zscaler or any type of CASB that can gather data from systems, right? Then you can see what people are using, right? What SaaS apps are using, right? And then you at least can go to those people and say, hey, I've seen you using this. What do you use it for? Who's the owner? And it's because the big thing in the SaaS world is pretty much anyone could do anything at any time if you're not watching them, right? So yeah,
But
so
how,
that's difficult.
yeah, so how do you get the buy-in though from the app owners? Is it just because the boss is the boss of the other, like, how does that happen? Because different
Uh,
companies are really different. I mean,
yeah.
it's
Yeah, usually I will tell you, I'm what do you call a honey over, you get more flies with honey, right? I
You
think
sugarcoat things.
yeah,
oh
yeah,
geez.
I'm your buddy, everything's great.
Okay.
Hey, when can we do this? Oh, I've been told by my management, we got to really do it within 2 months. You know what I mean? So you try to be
Right.
on their side, right? You don't want a confrontation, right? It's the old adage, you want to be the no security guy, KNOW, not the no security person, right? So that usually gets it, right? Then you have usually stragglers or some people that aren't as hip, and then you just usually have to push it up and have it come down the other side as a task.
And with IGA, Lewis, too, you know this as well. You worked for the Armada before, you had know that technology, but IGA with HR, that's even crazier because you have that data, which we are working with very closely. And this is new to me, is having to talk to HR in IT talking. Like, they don't usually like each other. It's like, and the data doesn't match. And to have those things match is very hard. And so to even adopt an IGA product, great. Someone said yes to it. Now you got to actually do it and have the HR and IT talk is very hard because they don't really want to. And then same thing with applications. You have to have everyone at least a little bit agree because they know the application, they know the roles and they know that, and they need to talk to HR. Like, you all need to talk, and that's kind of the point of a little bit this odd conversation is just that you have to have just consensus with the users, the people, and so it's not just I'm buying a product and it's going to be perfect for all of you. Go. No, we have to figure out how to have this. It's very complicated and more political than ever, but also the right politics, the right way to do it, because you're just trying to have everyone have access to their damn applications, securely.
You're absolutely correct. I think the key there is to, make sure that all these different parts of the organization, the HRs, the application owners, they're all sort of like buy into the same overall strategy, and they, execute together in unity, as opposed to somebody's trying to overpower folks in other departments. other good point, like HR, the data, yes, garbage in, garbage out, obviously, and it's never going to work unless you clean that up before you start. But there are also instances where organizations might have multiple different sources of truth. They may draw information from the HR system, but they may have to rely on another data source for people that may not be in the HR system, but they still may be part of the organization, contractors or things of that sort. So it does get very complicated, especially the larger the organization. The more international, the more regulated, they seem to be more complicated.
Is the source of truth though is still HR, and then the contractors are just additional inputs? Like you still have one source of truth, like that's the HR full time, and then the contractors have separate, or what do you mean? There's different sources of truth. Like there's could be multiple input.
Yeah, so it really varies. I mean, in some cases, there'd be multiple HR systems as multiple sources of truth. But we've seen, and I'm not really the implementation expert or person, but we've seen instances where two companies are merging, or
Yeah.
and they may not overlap 100% in their business practices. And one had one way of doing things, the other one the other way, and somehow they have to function together. And this is where it gets very challenging.
Yeah,
Can
Andrew,
I
you
jump
probably
on that?
Yeah,
No.
about that.
So not this job. My last job, we deployed identity access management solution, and it was very difficult because usually the first thing you do when you get everyone in the room, you go HR. You need a single person, someone owns it, right? Someone owns it, right? Who owns employees? HR. Then HR go, well, no, we don't. That's an IT thing. You do user counts, but you got to split that. It's like HR, you have to own, can this person work for the company or not? Okay. That's where it starts, right? Then that's employees, right? Well, then you go to contractors, temp workers, and HR go, well, I can't handle those, because any of my managers can hire a contractor, right? So
They
you
hate
go,
them.
okay, this is where you have to put something in place because it's hard to do because a manager will hire a contractor, right? They'll put in the correct paperwork, you'll give them an account, right? And then after a week they don't work out, okay, they're gone, and then they'll be on the system for months and months with the managers will not tell you because it's really they're worried about managing the department, right? They're not worried about employees, right? So that's where you need to at least put in places to, again, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but first, who owns who, right? Do the managers own their own temps and contractors? HR should own the employees, right? So then when you create a temp or contractor account, you need to put, obviously, it's good for 3 months, right? And then for it to continue, the manager has to reapply for it, right? And we're not even talking about, these are just basic accounts. Then you get into privilege accounts, which is a completely another ball game, right? And we can start talking about, just in time, right? And giving privileges, only when needed and stuff like that. And that's it. That's really why you need a system in place to do this for you automatically, because you don't want your help desk going, oh, it's Tuesday and we've got 3 accounts we have to. No, you need to have a system that's going to disable that user until the manager clicks OK, or you don't get access until somebody of the owner of that allows that.
This might be a completely naive question because I'm kind of not in the same industry as you guys. But how much control do you have that when a company is bringing you in to help them with data management? Are you able to really guide them on that if they've already got their own standards that they set?
Well, so that's a kind of a bad question for me because usually I go into companies that have no security people, right?
Okay.
And now Sumitomo did already, but before I'm usually building the programs, so usually it's chaos. I mean, just chaos, and you start with that low hanging fruit of just, okay, guys, are these people allowed to work here because they haven't logged in for 90 days? You know what I mean? Little things like that. So yeah, so probably maybe Laura could probably speak to more, going into different companies. Usually I would assume by the time they talk to you, Laura, that they're have something ready to go. They know what they want to do. They might not be in a very good place.
That 90 days thing is actually the really big thing. You said it was a little thing. I think that's one of the biggest things is having a script or having like something that says from Active Directory, it says you have not logged in for you have an employee that's not logged in for 90 days. Manager, yes, no, delete this person or keep it going. That's a really big deal because that person is a risk. It's a threat. So even just having that, like you just said, it's a small thing. It's a big deal. So if you're going in and fixing that, so I big companies don't have that because they don't see, like they have an expiration date they put in a form, but that's a form and it's not going in anything. It's just some process and form that goes into not la la land. You need to have a real expiration because no one wants to have your contractor be extinct after 90 days. They don't, no one really does that. They have it like a year or 2 years. They don't really put it where it's just not realistic. You can't just kill people's accounts because they are, so I don't know. The contractor thing's a problem. The sort of the truth thing is a problem. I don't remember the first question was, but you said low hanging fruits. So if you want to expand on that, because I think that's important to hit things that you can easily do, not boil oceans, basic stuff.
Oh my God, yes. Too many people have these big ideas, and usually, um, usually you start basic things like, is this employee or not? Right, that's a basic thing, and then tackle the privileged people. Right, so okay,
right.
Who has access to our financial data? Right, there should only be these 10 people. Right, so you might have, a huge company like 2,500 people, but if 2,000 people really I wouldn't say I don't care about, right? But I only care if they have an account or not because they're not going to get any crown jewels, right? So go, who has access to my HR system? Who has access to my finance system? Who has, so really starting at the top level. There's also, different companies have different levels of spend too, right? And there's a lot of free tools out there you can run and get some data.
Yep.
I mean, I always, Netrix
Microsoft
has some free AD tools, if you're running AD, intra AD, hybrid. But anyways, all the time people are doing free tools. And am I allowed to talk about actual people, vendors? Okay.
Of course. Yeah, whatever you want. That's what I like about you. Just say what you feel.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I did a demo of CrowdStrike's Active Directory thing this week, and they were, it's super easy because we're already a CrowdStrike customer, right? We already have the agents running on our DCs, right? Super easy, and it's like, oh, did you know that these 3 people have the same password? Did you know that this person's never logged in? Did you know that this, and it puts it right there into a nice little report for you. You can get that same data through PowerShell scripts, right? It's all there, right? It comes back to doing more with less people, right? Like if you could just, get something that can tell you instead of having to do all the work yourself.
It's reporting. Yeah. Reports matter too. Like it matters to executives. Like we were talking about that buy-in. You need to have people that you can't show. You have to show a pre-report to show it. That's a good, valuable thing for sure. Privileged access users though are always confusing to me though. As PAM is really popular. Everyone understands PAM, but it's like you said financial, but most people don't include that person. Like they really don't in their privileged access management users. It's just different people. Like they have who's a privileged user? Like there's so many developers.
Think of just administrators, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, is that a privilege? Well, obviously it's
privileged. Who the hell is a privileged user? I don't even know.
But what about developers that have access?
Developers.
But what if they're not even, if these developers are developing with the same data as in production, and you haven't, scrub that data, right? They have access to production data.
So much damage.
Yeah. Insider threat, right?
And like even like a sales user could be privileged access. Like I don't really like the word privilege, and like the people understand it like a lot, and it's like a thing and whatever. But it's like when you see the users, it's not even the real. It's hard. It's just this technology is good because it's coming out there and it's starting to be I mean, that's their business, and I love identity access management, but it's just the terms are still a little screwed up. Like everyone's a little privileged.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if this is a thing, but let's say sales, and you got 3 salespeople, Central, Eastern, Western, and maybe you don't want Western to be able to see the leads for Eastern.
Yeah.
I doubt that's a thing, but I'm just making it
No,
up.
no,
right?
no, it is. It's a thing.
So, but that's where you want to make sure that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was, not to date me or whatever, but I worked for the NSA when I was in the Army, right? But that was like early 90s. But anyways, there's such a thing as need to know. If you don't need to know it, why are
Right.
you knowing it, right? And really understanding. You mentioned the financials, right? If I don't need to know what the financials of my company, why would I ever have access to it, right? And then comes AI, right? And you've got Copilot
Yep.
out now, and Copilot, if you're in Microsoft, it will basically pull data from anything that you as a person has access to. And if your CFO has, shared out the pre E10K or whatever it is that,
Yeah.
and you make a thing like, how well were we doing here? Well, you could be getting data that's not for another going to be exposed till next week, and you're doing insider trading, right? So easy. I wouldn't say easy. I said so powerful.
But people show up for work and you don't have the role defined. So it's a salesperson or it's a sales director, it's a sales person, and they don't have this role defined, and they don't, because they're not talking with HR to IT and blah, blah, blah. It's like the salesperson knows the sales manager and that's it. Like they don't talk through. And so you want to give them access to their tool right away. And so you give them everything because you want them to be able to function, or you give them very small and they can't do half their job. Like that's a thing. Like there's not, the roles are so defined in each app, and it's specific to the app. And so to have those apps then match the IGA or IAM solution and HR, it's like you have to be super organized to have this all work
absolutely.
out in harmony. But it's annoying. So how do you do that? Because you don't want to do that to a company. Like at professional services, I don't want to do that for somebody and tell them what their role should be. Like that's a lot of work. Like you just want to have a tool that just magically works.
Well, a lot of the products come with role mining, right?
Yeah,
so
that's true.
You can get I would say 80%. Right.
Well, that's
it's those, but I so I did this when I worked for another company. We did this project and it was our Malaysia branch. Right. And we went there, and in their ERP, they had a role for every single user.
That's just not even, what does that mean? Like, it's
literally, if you were a new user, you got a new role, right? And then they threw things into your role. Right. And we spent a long time untangling the threads.
You have a lot of experience with that, with also culture and also adopting and how to do that. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, because I think that's really valuable. There's a lot of other manufacturing companies and people that would think that's useful of how to deal with that when there's control issues, not just from culture, but just in general. Like they want to have the data in different divisions and want things. Like how do you be nice and also real?
It's really difficult, and sometimes it just doesn't work because I mean, I hate to say this, sometimes you're just working with people that are, I mean,
you're stuck.
They're just idiots. I mean, really. I mean, I'm
yeah,
just,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
But also there's, like when you mentioned, head of sales isn't an IT person, so they don't understand roles. So you've got to be talking to them as, like say, hey, you're using Salesforce or whatever. Do you want your Bill to see you? Oh no, I wouldn't want that. You know what I mean? So, but if you say, hey, do you want Bill to have read only role and blah, and then their eyes are glazed over, right? So speaking, that kind of thing. I tell you what, I'm the worst communicator sometimes. And I so use ChatGPT for my emails now, and they sound so good. I mean,
so
I
good.
can't believe it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah. And
with pictures too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
So one question for Andrew is that I think Andrew talked about something like how from the end user perspective, but in fact, when I work as a system engineer, I deal with the actually product deployment engineer. What we did is we remove the complexity and the difficulty from the actual regional engineer and make the tools, and they just use this easy to use tools, follow our process document, and get their job done. All the technical complication has been covered by the tools. The reason I'm talking this is talking about from Andrew's perspective, user like the sales. From end user perspective, he just know I want to need to access, for example, Salesforce. I want to need to access this module of Salesforce. In terms of all the other things, I have no clue. That's IT or whatever other departments functionality, right? And those things should be defined by the department, whatever, at least in the department level. Then from they join the team, those rules should be at least somebody must define the very beginning, then pass these rules to the IT or to the security team. Then they take action to define the rules. Then this new guy joins the team. Then your IAM, your access, your privilege should be defined based on the group, right? User group, whatever. Then as long as the user add to that group, like in AWS, right? Then the user should be granted a corresponding privilege. So it's my understanding correct? So I'm a little bit confused about why we each time we ask end user, then if you ask end user, then the end user definitely got confused.
True.
No, I agree with that, Roger. And I think kind of what concept you're talking about is, a lot of IT teams will have business analysts, right? They're kind of like your in-betweens. But sometimes you'll have more like a power user, right, in an organization, right? Maybe in finance you have, or HR, an HRIS person, right? That's the person that's melding the HR and the technology together. So hopefully you have someone like that in that group that you're working with can sort of bridge that gap between the business requirements and the technical requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Somebody must bridge the gap.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's difficult. It's there's so many layers to this. A lot of layers to come from working with some IT folks that are really about the shiny penny. You know what I mean? And they just want technology. But why? What are we doing? I like to call myself the plumber, right? IT is just a plumber, right? I just unstuck toilets, man. That's all I do, right? Everybody's got to pee and stuff, right? But without a bathroom to plumb, I wouldn't have a job, right? I'm not. They're not my IT systems, right? It's not my data, right? That's a really cool functionality. It is an IT person making sure that they also are, selecting the right products, going towards business objectives, right, and making sure that it's something for the business. I will tell one thing that I thought about, and Laura was talking about this, and I'll give you one time, one of my worst experiences trying to get a group of people to change, right, was literally the Windows administrators that think that they could use their regular account as also a privileged account, right? And I want to look at them like, are you a freaking idiot? Right? I mean, but all they are is wanting to be easy, right? They just want things to be easy, right? And it was one of the biggest, drawn out weeks of discussions, blah, blah, we're not going to be able to do our jobs if we're not, and no, it's just about learning how to do things just a different way, right? And come on, the last thing you want to do is have a phishing email come in and you're reading that email as a privileged user, right?
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
So what do you do when you have a stubborn person like that, and there's such a simple solution? Do you just have to give examples like you were saying, where do you want such and such person to be able to see finance? Like, what do you use the same examples to kind of convince those other stubborn people?
Yeah, you try. You just try. I will tell you that I use we shouldn't call it technique, but I usually try to butter people up, make it. I think of it kind of like being a salesperson. You know how the salesperson calls you up and they want to be your buddy, and let's go out for a beer. Well, that's because you buy more from people who you relate to, right? So coming in and going, man, I've had such a hard day, man. My kids are late to school today. You know what I mean? Like,
So hard though.
yeah, it is difficult. And then like, hey, what do you do in your free time? You know what I mean? I mean, trying to get somebody to open up sometimes, and at the end of the day, sometimes they just don't get it, and you just have to. At the end of the day, my job is to tell the company about a risk. If they don't want to fix the risk, it's not my problem, right? I'm not. I only do the things the company wants to do, right? If they know that the toilet keeps running, and they don't want to fix it.
Some people have forms like that. They'll like sign this that say that you're not responsible, and like that's like how it is, because it's like I'm telling you 18 times, like just sign. Like, yeah, that's good. You're trying now.
Yeah. It'll drive you crazy, man, if you let it. You just can't. I mean, you just can't take it personal, right?
Is it easier to set up a new system than to reorganize a system they already have?
Absolutely. And depending on I will tell you also, and I don't. I guess this is employment discrimination if I say this, but the people that have been there the longest are the worst, because they will invariably say, but I've done this for 20 years this way. I mean, I don't know how many times I could tell you, and I'm like, just because you've done it for 20 years does not mean that's the right way to do it. Right? So think outside the box here, so usually if somebody's been in a company for that long and they've been doing the same type of job for that long, they're just comfortable, right? And who moved my cheese, right?
Right. And I understand less vendors and less technology. So like I feel that. Roger, you're trying to talk, sorry. Whoops. Oh, sorry. You trying to talk?
Sometimes when I clear my voice, I pick up the microphone myself.
Oh. I don't know. I was just saying, like less technologies and vendors though sometimes too, and like old fashioned. Like if you already have Microsoft, like you were saying, Andrew too. Like if you have pieces and tech that can do stuff, let's just work with what you have and try to make the most of it. And like why not maximize the freaking stuff you already have, the contracts you already have, like. It's all shit. Anyway, no offense. Like I'm a vendor. It's all the same. Like we're all the same people. We're all the same technology. Just make it work if you can. And that's not an awesome thing to say. There have needs for technology once in a while, but you can make something work and to try as much as possible. But I don't know. That's probably old-fashioned.
No. Dude, crawl, walk, run. Right?
Yeah.
What are some things we could do in the next 3 months to make this process better? If this thing takes one day to do, why does it take a day? How about if we get it to just 1 hour, right?
What about the self-servicing thing? Maybe that's a dumb question to ask, but like self-servicing apps instead of having tickets. Like I hate Snow, I hate help desk. It's like all these emails and shit of like just integrating those tools are so hard, because there are a way to do this with apps and Louis, maybe you know about this more on the IGA tools, but isn't that annoying to have help desk tickets for access? Like issues like just IT tickets are annoying to me.
Yeah, and I think that whole automating the identity access management, that's part of it, right? You can do the self password reset, and the idea is to really I think early on we talked about some of the benefits, which one of them was rightfully so the cost savings associated with this. And this is a huge one, right? If you reduce the service tickets by half, I mean, imagine how much money that will cost or safe to the enterprise. I mean, those you
They're
can
so
stack them.
annoying. Yeah.
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 And again, the AI initiative, you're going to be a chat body, right? And you think it's somebody in the help desk. It's not. It's just a chat body. What do you need, right? Oh, I need my password reset. Well, obviously you need to put parameters around that. How do they prove that they're themselves and different things? But yeah, getting to that point where you can automate as much non-risky behavior, right? You don't want to do full automation on risky behavior, right? But that's, or maybe there's certain things like you mentioned developers, right? Like a developer needs administrative rights to a production system, and then you put in the system that for 4 hours from this time to this time, right? That's pretty much kind of automated, right? They could put in a request and then that just gets approved. Or maybe I have an email and I say approve, right? Or just a click of a button, right?
Is AI though like hyped? Like I have AI for my Christmas lights. They come on every, or it's an automation, like it turns on every dawn or whatever. Is that like just, is it just like this automation thing that says, or is it sci-fi to take over the world? Like everyone talks about that, like holiday parties and things. Like AI is kind of a really annoying topic, so I'm bringing it up because I love it, but I also think if you don't talk about it with business now, people are going to be scared of it. Like people that are CFOs, CEOs, CIOs, they are either love it or they're scared of it. So how do you communicate in the culture so it's not like the sci-fi movie of her, right? So how do you make it like this thing?
Yeah.
Great movie.
Awesome movie. I love her. I love Scarlett Johansson. But just it's a thing though, because I do believe in it, but I also want, I'm not sure. This is
Well, there's another side to it too. If you're not working with your business to do something for them in IT, and if you're saying no, they're not doing it themselves. I mean, literally, nothing's stopping them nowadays. Obviously they can't get access to Microsoft Copilot without getting an account, but they could buy their own generative AI off some other one, other vendor and do it and dump data in there all they want, right? So you need to be enabling that. You need a lot of education, right? Because you mentioned the word AI, but it's actually we're in the generative AI phase. The first versions of AI were more like Google, right? But now we're actually putting the AI is putting things together. It's still not thinking for itself, right? That's that full, Skynet, Terminator, style, right? We're still not there. But being able to use this as a, I always say, like, we're not going to get rid of someone's job. We're going to make you more powerful, right? We're going to make you a superhero.
How do you do it right now? Like, how do you do it so they don't feel that? Like, how do you make that part of the culture? Like, is it, we have security awareness training every month? Is it like you add that to the agenda? Do you like, how do you mass communicate this as a culture? And why is it your responsibility? Like, this sucks to be IT's responsibility or like CISO's responsibility, like your responsibility. Why should you be responsible for this? But it's who else does it? It's not going to be the business owner. So I don't know. I'm just asking because
yeah. We're starting at the top. We're getting actual, instead of like a little security awareness video. No, we're going to the top and getting the C levels, right? Actual AI training, right? For them. And I'm not talking about how to prompt.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But understanding, at their level what it is, where it's useful, right? And then going to the business, the next step, of course, because then you're working top down, right? It's not going to be bottom up.
Which is kind of like you were explaining with AI in general. You're using it almost as a filter. Something you said at the beginning of this discussion, which was, as an end user, as just a regular person, pretty ingenious. If I'm trying to log into my work stuff at 2 a.m., that's not usual. There should be more protection at 2 a.m. But maybe somebody has to go through less steps from 9 to 5 when you're expecting them to probably be doing these things. And that's the type of thing that AI should be helping with. You don't need to have a person on hand at 2 a.m. to say somebody shouldn't log in. That should be something that could easily be filtered. And that's a filter is way less scary than a Skynet's going to be paying attention at 2 a.m.
Yeah. No, James,
that.
I mentioned the CrowdStrike product I was just checking out, and they have another one. I forgot. It's called like identity protection. And then they can integrate with Okta, so they do that behavior analytics, and then you can say, okay, if it's a certain time outside, you have to do it MFA, right? So you're not stopping people, but saying like what you were saying, James, is like, hey, if it's in the middle of the night, I want to re-authenticate. I might have already had device certificates, right? So I made sure the device I knew it, right? But then something, people aren't really working at this time, right? Maybe they're traveling or whatever. So
somewhere weird. Yeah.
Throw them another MFA prompt or whatever you're using for, that secondary authentication, right? And just get a little bit more.
Roger talking?
Oh, no, sorry. Sorry, I think I accidentally clicked something.
We should say hi to Matt. I think Matt's new.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm a super late joiner. I really wanted to join the discussion early on and got caught up with something, so I'm glad to see you guys are still rocking the conversation 55 minutes later here.
Oh, good. If you want to say something or introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Sure.
So nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks.
Where do you live?
Yeah, I actually live in Denver, Colorado. I've been here most of my life. And I work for a company called Ping Identity. So one of those leaders in identity and access management. But a lot of and I'm a sales guy, so you guys are probably like want to boot me off, but I'm always down for learning. And a lot of my customers are Fortune 1000 customers in the Bay Area. So, kind of started getting involved around the time of COVID. So really these meetups aren't meetups, they're gatherings on the internet. And so it's really nice for you guys to add me to your community. So I appreciate it. So I'm not sure if I have much value to add, but
of course
just hearing Andrew for those hot seconds talking about a flow, right, that does different types of step ups. Those are the things I like to hear in real life, how people are solving problems like that. So
Ping's big. So
that's
awesome.
And just because I mentioned CrowdStrike doesn't mean I endorse products, okay? I'm not endorsing any product. I don't work for anyone who makes a product, right? Yeah.
No, I totally gotcha.
No, it's good. I think in general, it's just products are very important. We need to have them, and it's not any against vendors of any type at all. Everyone's always in sales. Andrew was just saying he's selling to his company constantly about culture and things. We're always trying to get pieces that we believe in. So that's awesome. It's good. It's good thing.
Well, Andrew, is it like more about processes, right? So you have like these little bits and pieces of technology that are in place, but the integration and then the way that people actually use them, right? Because I'm an end user at my company, right? And so the things that you guys are solving for in IT and security and some other type of roles are the things that me as a consumer at my company, I want like silently happening on the back end. And when change happens, we all, get in a tizzy, right? So understanding how you guys are putting the pieces together, integrating, and then I don't know, I guess communicating that change management to make it seamless for the end user. That's the kind of stuff that always kind of really intrigues me, because that's probably one of the harder parts of the job.
Yeah, what process, people, is there another P or is it
products?
Technology?
Products. Same thing,
okay. Yeah, Matt wasn't here when we were talking about the whole Salesforce, right? So Matt, this is interesting, right? So I'm an IT guy, right? And Matt, you're a sales guy, right? And we don't always, now you just have to be a salesperson in technology, right? But let's just say you're selling widgets, right? I'm going to be talking to you in one way, and then you're not going to understand, and you're going to talk to me in another way, and I'm not going to understand. So getting us together, right? And saying, so I come to Matt and say, Matt, I want to talk about how your users get access to things. What does these things do you need, Matt? Matt might be like, hey, when I hire a salesperson, I want within the first day, I want them on email. I want them to have their, corporate cell phone. I want them to do lead generation. I'm just making up terms now, but I think lead generation is a term in sales. But anyways,
The territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's got to say, hey, I want this, this, and this, and this. And then I might go, but okay, so you want them doing this? Can they make a quote? Oh, no. They can't make a quote yet. Not until they've been here and I've approved them to be a quote generator, or maybe they can make a quote over this. That's what comes back to that, talking about the processes, right? Because from the business standpoint, you need to think about like, oh, you're right. I don't want them to be able to make a quote for $1 million, or oh, maybe like a percentage off, right? I assume there's some kind of thing like the first salesperson can't give 50% off, right? Maybe that has to go to the regional person. Yeah. So that goes back to those processes like you're talking about, and how to put it together, because in the back end, the identity access management systems that's a role, that's an access to be able to create a quote of more than $50,000 or 50% off or whatever, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's like in my world, that there's two things I was thinking of. One was day one, I started the company, I'm a sales guy and they want to get value out of me and revenue. It's probably within the company's best interest to give me access to the quoting system so I could begin that journey. The second part of that was what you were talking about, which is almost, I would call it an approvals process, but it's almost like a fine-grained, I hate to use the word authorization, but it really is an authorization type thing where we're not going to let this guy hit a certain threshold without it throwing up a flag and blocking it or asking for an approval process. And those things really are in place in my role on a daily basis. Like, I don't know why it would behoove a company to not give me access to those systems in the beginning, but within those systems, there's got to be some different breaks to make sure that I don't go off the chain and start throwing out $1 million quotes for $25,000 and giving everybody that deal of the century.
Oh, that's another good thing he brought up too. And going back to sort of, a while back, is about allow listing, right? But then we realized, people are way too busy to keep asking for permission to do something on their systems, right? But what you can do is you could say, oh, well, I'm not going to stop Matt from doing it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise this flag, right? And then someone in the business can see these flags and then override that, so maybe the quote won't be good or something like that. So that's the other thing is, don't make it too hard to do your job, but make sure that you're watching out what's going on too.
And those are really good details, but usually it's just onboarding, offboarding. Like, give him the shit he needs to do. He leaves, he's fired, remove access immediately because he's a high risk to steal the customers, right? So it's always like one or the other. It's like green light, red light, green light, So it's just, but there is the middle stuff that's very important, but it's just usually companies aren't there. It's literally just the onboarding, offboarding.
And I know this isn't identity access management, but the other piece of that, James, you brought this up earlier, was behavior analytics. Like, did Matt just download 2 gigs of data out of Salesforce and he put in his
Excel?
What?
Sent to Gmail.
Yeah, how many times we've caught salespeople trying to take a, what do you call it, like a leads list or
it's their business.
Customer data, right?
I can give you a real story about that. So the company I work for just recently merged with another company, and within a week of that merge announcement happening, where everybody was kind of like, what's going to happen here? Our CISO sent out a company-wide email, essentially like reiterating the policy of no outside USB drives, et cetera. And then a week later, we had the CrowdStrike bubble pop up on our computers. Like, every day when I plug my monitor into my laptop, it'll say that. So it's like, this is an outside thing, and if you need to get past it, contact IT, because they must have not had the stops in place before, but they put the stops in place real quick to so that insider, I guess, data transfer wasn't occurring when it shouldn't have.
And it sucks to have a rule like no outside devices. So if you have rules ahead of time to stop somebody from accessing it, then you don't have to create hurdles for people to do their job. It's like just being ready before the problem occurs instead of trying to backtrack and fix a crash afterwards.
Yeah, and one of those hurdles was like a couple weeks after that, I was with my engineer at a customer doing an on-site type thing, and he was showcasing something where he was popping in maybe like a YubiKey or something, right?
Mhm.
And for some reason, maybe that was not part of that policy, and so he had to spend
Oh.
an hour the night before
Oh,
people getting the exception just so he could do the demonstration correctly because we had put that in place recently, right? So that's one of those friction points where that added layer of security was great for the security group and not so good for the user experience group.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Why wasn't there communication at least? They should have, at least let you know it's coming, right? I mean, that is the other flip side of it, right? But anyway, yeah.
So much risk though. They're just thinking of just people just quickly abandoning and just taking customer data. So they were just that one time they could just do it a different way, maybe a PowerPoint or I don't know. But yeah, that's
and again, I'm constantly saying things. These might be out of my world, but I do a lot of presentations, and I've been at colleges that I've been presenting at. And if you run into those hurdles, it's a huge deal, and you have to have somebody come in there and help you. Is there not a role for just presentation that
good.
people can log
Yeah.
into, so that it doesn't have to be a person so much as this is a presentation
Marketing.
environment, and it
Yeah.
has a different set of rules?
Marketing. Like if someone
Yeah.
takes some, there should be classifications for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably
usually what you're talking about, James, is more like in the AV space, right? And
Yeah.
splitting that AV IoT environment off from your production, so you shouldn't care about it, right? So yeah,
I would assume, maybe it's over my head that maybe they do need to, but I can't imagine if I'm coming in from an outsider of a college that me being in a presentation in an auditorium, I shouldn't have access to any of their other stuff anyways. So why am I having to go through extra security holes to show something on a projector and go through their machines?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, thank you guys. And no, it's over. So go ahead. No, guess say what you say.
We're over time, Laura.
No,
Sorry.
but go ahead. No.
You already said it. You know I talk a lot.
I love it. Keep going.
No, dude, no.
Keep going. No, I love it.
Maybe you'll invite me back for another one. So I shouldn't
for sure.
say
Well, I love
everything.
having you.